Okay, time for one of the episodes that has the most bizarre sort of controversy of any of the TNG episodes. Because of the fact that, from one perspective, it's a simple and easy decision. But then there's the moral high ground, uh, where they decide, like, nope, nope, nope. Actually, the universe has decided that it is time for these people to die. Therefore, we will abide by the universe's wishes. Yeah, that was a strange one. Anyway, so what was happening? Atmospheric dissipation. Now, atmospheric dissipation is something that is only used in this episode as a plot device, as you can see on the wiki article, which does not mention a single thing outside this episode. The floof explanation for how it happens is functionally non-existent. It does, however, suggest that there's some sort of energetic radiation-based reason for this to happen. And it's this radiation that's causing the atmosphere to dissipate, and thus not something that's anything you would consider to be normal, and thus outside the real world understanding of planetary atmospheres. Notably, the exothermal inversion event that they were concerned might happen on Panthara 4 was similar in that it involved ionizing dust particles, and the idea of basically is just like lighting the dust on fire, uh, metaphorically speaking, I guess. Which, on that scale, yeah, that would be a problem. Again, though, in both cases, it is more of a plot device than anything that the uh, characters in the story are actually expected to do something about. It is the background. It's like, oh, this planet is being destroyed by atmospheric dissipation and will become uninhabitable in 5, 4. You see where that's going. Then there's the exothermic one, which is basically just, you can't do this because X will happen. X did not happen because they did not, in fact, do that and did not have something else cause it instead. Okay, so why is this planet important? Okay, let's back up. The Federation was, in fact, doing a observation of the atmospheric dissipation. See, Picard was actually coming to the planet to pick up Nikolai Rozhenko and then watch the atmosphere dissipate. He wasn't planning on picking up any of the people on the planet, just Nikolai, because he was the Federation observer who was there to, monitor the local populace and blah, 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 blah. Well, yeah. Said cultural observation thing is something that comes up later in one of the TNG movies, where we find out that the Federation has also been doing that to monitor the Baku. Which, the funny thing with the Baku example is that it was practically inevitable that the Baku would have found them, because of the fact that the Baku were actually a culture capable of understanding how such things worked. They just, hadn't noticed yet. In this case, Nikolai Rozhenko and his let's just flip over to him. Oh yeah, Worf's brother, sort of. Worf got adopted into a human family. This is one of the people in the human family that Worf got adopted into. ends up marrying one of the locals and fathering a child with her. Said child has not been born yet as of the time of this episode, but stuff happens. So, that's one of those things. It's like he's not really supposed to even talk to the locals. The fact that he married one of them and fathered a child with her is yeah. Also, he thought about joining Starfleet, but decided that he wasn't into following Starfleet's rules. So, didn't do that. And then he becomes a cultural observer for the Federation. And oh yeah, he doesn't follow those rules either. Yeah, pattern of behavior. Oh, and he later on gets left on whatever planet they dump the Boraalans on. So bye. He made his choice. Anyways, so his observation post. We didn't actually see it. See, this is the one on Mintaka. This is the one on Baku. One of them did exist on the Boraalan a planet somewhere, but they didn't actually show it. And it's kind of sort of hinted that the reason why Nikolai had that force field set up to contain the atmosphere inside that cave was that he was using technology that he brought to the planet as part of setting up his um, listening post. Mm, we don't actually see what the observation post that he had set up on the planet was actually supposed to look like. Also, when we actually see him, he's literally just living in their village. So, what exactly has he been doing? Good question. Anyways, so the Boraalan people, pretty much standard humanoids. Slightly different wrinkly noses, and honestly, the hair isn't even something that makes them distinctive. In this case, she has rather interesting looking hair, but that interesting looking hair is not something that is even part of the Boraalan race design. It's just that's what her hair looks like. Because like you see this guy here, and yeah, he doesn't have that. Um, Another interesting thing is that they do actually go into something about the Boraalan culture and history and stuff, which is paper thin, but it is a nice little bit of flavor added onto it. Like whatever sort of book this is, they call them scrolls, but it's a horizontally oriented book that has vertical rows of lettering in a horizontally oriented book. Huh, whatever. Anyways, it's what the Boraalans do. Does any culture on Earth do it that way? No. Anyways, the symbols are nothing interesting even, but it's suggested that they're more like, like Chinese characters or pictograms or something than letters. Which, okay, that's a thing that could be an issue with trying to figure it out later. And as mentioned, Nikolai was able to father a child with a Boraalan woman without the Boraalan woman realizing he wasn't a Boraalan. Interesting. So yeah, like I said, other than the wrinkle on the nose, there doesn't really seem to be any significant differences between them and humans. Okay then. So, yeah, this is the one that ends up married to Nikolai. And here we have this one here who, she does kind of sort of have her hair kind of like styled up, but it's It's not really that interesting looking. So, maybe you could say that the Boraalan hair tends to grow up and not down, but whatever. Anyway, yeah, she was named character solely because of the fact that they needed to have more than one of the Boraalans have a name. I guess. Anyway, though, oh yeah, that's right. Her father decided that having her marry Worf would be a great idea because she was apparently single and so on and so forth. Worf was not planning to stay with them, so he declined, citing obligations elsewhere or something. It's actually kind of true. Anyway, though, so what did Baral look like? We don't know. No, seriously. It's described as being a very Earth-like planet and nothing particularly interesting about it and blah 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 blah. That's basically all we know about it. It was a Class M world that had an atmospheric dissipation event that rendered the entire planet uninhabitable. Maybe killed off all of the life on the planet, maybe. And yeah, that's it. That's all we know about it. Then we have the process of transporting the Boraalans and the whole like sign of the forge thing, which this is one of those things that it's the kind of thing you would expect a party to do as part of the thing because they're like kind of sort of like talking in code because this is after the small group of surviving Boraalans has already been transported to the holodeck on board the Enterprise. Because somehow Nikolai managed to transport the group that had been taking shelter in the cave into the holodeck on the Enterprise after programming in a holographic simulation that would be a reasonably good reproduction of the cave they were hiding in. And then, they travel through the cave for however many hours while the Enterprise is flying to a new planet to drop them off. And then, when they exit the cave, they find themselves on board the new. They get transported down to the new planet and call it good. This is one of those things where it honestly kind of sort of seems like why is this the first time anyone in the Federation ever did that? Yeah, well, I'll get back to that later. Anyway, though, so they do have a plot element where they're like trying to find a place and come up with the idea that there's only two planets that they know of that would actually be even semi-suitable habitats. Drago 4, which is actually a rather nice planet, something that is near Cardassian space, and the sort of planet that the Cardassian Union is highly likely to want to colonize in the near future. Needless to say, putting the Boraalin colonists on a planet that the Cardassian Union is probably going to colonize in the near future seems like a bad idea, because then the Cardassian Unions would be like, "Hi, natives that currently live here. We're in charge now, and if you don't like that, we'll kill you." Yeah, the Cardassians were mean like that sometimes. So that's what the Federation was expecting the Cardassians to do to the Boraalans, and thus decided not to put them on Drago 4. So they ended up going for Vaca. The other thing that's really interesting is that Vaca has something described as large roving carnivores. No, seriously, that's the only thing about the place that's actually even mildly interesting. It's like it's kind of sort of more jungly than the one that they used to live on, and that's about the only real notable difference. M-class planet with one moon and yada yada yada. So there's one thing left in this episode to actually talk about, and that is the utilization of the Prime Directive in this episode. And that is one of those things that gets really, really, really hairy and fickle, and is also part of the reason why Nikolai Rozhenko decided to stay on Vaca 6 instead of returning to the Federation. Because as long as he stays on Vaca 6, he doesn't need to worry about the Federation locking him into prison. Yeah. Anyways, so the basic gist of it is that, and this is one of those things that would be a moral decision that the party would have to solve if you're doing this as a TTRPG. The key aspect of the Prime Directive, as it was being evoked in this case, was that the Federation does not interfere with the development of other civilizations. So, they're not going to just like show up on the Boraalans doorstep, tell them what's going on, and then, relocate the Boraalans to a new homeworld and tell them to have a nice day. In theory, if you were slightly sneakier, you could do this without actually letting the Boraalans know. Because, like, that's one of the things I was alluding to earlier, is that the methodology used by Nikolai Rozhenko and Worf for transporting the Boraalans, honestly, if someone had actually, done this before, it wouldn't have been anywhere near as fiddly or, difficult to make work properly. Thing is, the Federation usually just, lets planetary populations die if a natural disaster is threatening to kill them. That's just what they do. Because they feel that it is, well, like I said before, it's like, this is what the universe has decided is these people's fate. Is this actually, what a different civilization would do? Not necessarily. Which is what makes it such an interesting conundrum, is that letting people die because of a natural disaster does not actually seem like the right moral decision to a lot of people. But it is what the United Federation of Planets has decided is the correct thing. And this has often been phrased as a matter of political expedience rather than moral uh, um, correctness. And yeah, that's actually a major aspect in stories like this, is that, you know, that rule was put into place by bureaucrats who may or may not have ever been in a situation like this ever. So the question of why exactly this is this way and so on and so forth, when you look at it from a moral bureaucracy perspective, it's like, oh, great. Um, yeah. Thing is, though, Picard is a bureaucrat first, a scientist second, and when it comes to actual like morality, yeah, I wouldn't exactly consider him a paragon of virtue. He's the kind of guy who he often makes emotional decisions. He also makes emotional decisions looking at the thing from a ivory tower, metaphorically speaking, anyways, and not actually, looking at it from the perspective of the plebs. Anyways, though, but yeah, Picard, would have just left all of the Boraalans to die if not for Nikolai Rozhenko sabotaging things by transporting them to the Enterprise. Picard was not willing to, transport the Boraalans back down because he knew that it would mean that they would all die. And while he was willing to stand by and let nature kill them, he wasn't willing to actually directly kill them himself. Yeah. Anyway, like I said, it's an interesting moral conundrum, but it's a very fake moral conundrum to me. However, the fakeness is what makes it like obviously a conundrum to the viewer, and not something where you automatically think Picard is right. Like, you can understand Picard's point of view, but at the same time, you're not necessarily going to agree with Picard's point of view. And that's something that I actually find to be what made the episode interesting, is because the fact is like, yes, this is what the bureaucracy tells you that you should be doing. We don't agree with the idea that the bureaucracy is the arbiter of, morality, because they're bureaucrats. Anyway, though, and with that, I think I've exhausted this particular discussion. See you guys later.